Welcome back to the Cozy Cottage Homestead, and welcome if you're new here. I'm Rebecca, and my husband is John. I'm going to be doing a little series on the amazing honey. Raw honey is the best. Local honey, if you can get local honey. And your next best thing is if you know how to be a beekeeper. I'm not quite there yet. It is something that's in the works. But however, I do enjoy the benefits and the health benefits of honey and raw honey. So I found it to be quite interesting once I dove into all of the information and the history on the honeybee and the honey itself. So I thought I would just do a little series on honey. I'm not a professional. I'm not a professional reader. I'm going to mess up. I'm probably going to butcher it. But hopefully you can see through the flaws and get some good information about the honeybees and honey. So I'm going to break it down into several series because it's a lot of information. It may not be a very popular video, but that's okay. I'm sure if it helps someone out there, then that's wonderful. I'm not here to save the world, just here to share some good information and help others along the way. So I'm going to be reading from some of my books that I have for reference books on honey. And then I'll be sharing some other stuff with you about honey as well. So I'm going to start reading. The bee is a true marvel of nature, based upon the principles that we use to build airplanes and astronaut engineering. Bees should not be able to fly. Along with silkworms, bees are the only domesticated insect on Earth creating fast reverses of bees' wax, honey, bee pollen, and royal jelly. Without bees, we would lose the 2.2 billion pounds of annual honey produced around the world. Without the cross-pollination that bees provide in their pollen and nectar gathering, there would be at least 90 species of fruits, vegetables, and grains that would die out. That's very interesting. So you can see how honey most definitely ties into homesteading. It's very important. Without bees, history would not have included wax for candles to light up at night, wax molds to make golden ornaments, reference to love as sweet as a honey, and the major decision inspired by mead wine. Honey was so valuable to our ancestors that Romans used it in place of gold to pay their taxes. Notice that money and honey are only one letter different. Greeks would eat honey before entering the arena for competition. In the Old Testament, Jacob set an offering of honey to Joseph, the ruler of Egypt, to generate good feelings. In the great Egyptian civilization, which created the pyramid, honey was given to children to ward off evil spirits and was buried in tombs as a food for the hereafter. Jars of honey have been found in Egypt tombs 3,300 years after they were buried, and the honey was still edible. Most junk food has a shelf life because bacteria cannot survive off this stuff, while honey has an ever longer shelf life because of the antibiotics and antibiotics agents to halt bacterial growth, which was created by the bee. And of course we know who created the bees. Jesus did. Quite amazing when you dig into the bee. Average Americans eat 285 million pounds of honey each year. This may have increased because this book is kind of old. However, which is only possible because the average beehive produces 3 times more honey than the bees need to survive. To pollinate California's approximately 360,000 bearing acres of almonds, it is estimated that 250,000 colonies of honey must be borrowed from other states to add to the 500,000 colonies already in the state. It takes 556 worker bees flying 35,584 miles, which is 1.3 times around the world, to produce 1 pound of honey. That's quite amazing. Which means that 1.2 trillion bees fly a total of 80 trillion miles to produce the world's annual supply of honey. That is just unbelievable to me. They are seriously some little worker bees, which is where we get the little busy as a bee and worker bee little phrases. So compare that distance flown to the 90 million miles from the Earth to the Sun. The average life of a worker bee is 6 weeks, at which time the bee's wings are worn to shreds and the bee dies of exhaustion. I imagine so. Some nutritionists would argue that honey is nothing more than another simple carbohydrate, like white sugar. Actually, honey is a complex collection of enzymes, plant pigments, organic acids, esters, antibiotic agents, trace minerals, and other unidentified nutritional factors. Since honey is a partially digested product from the bee's gut, the digestive enzymes probably play an important role in the nutritional value of honey. Therefore, always look for raw or unpasteurized honey. It can be filtered but not pasteurized, because when they pasteurize it, it takes all of the good enzymes and all the nutritional value goes down to just about zero. And then they add back what they call honey flavoring, which is an artificial ingredient. So your best bet is to try to find raw honey, unpasteurized, and even better than that, find some of your local bee farms or whatever you want to call them, and get some local honey that's local to your area. That's your best bet, unless you raise them yourself. And if you do raise them yourself, I'm sure you know a whole lot more information about bees than I probably do. So I've been studying it for about 20 years, but we just haven't gotten to the point of actually getting our own honeybees. Realizing that honey is a combination of nectar, which is a sweet syrup produced by flowers to attract bees for their cross-pollination talents, plus the pollen, which is the plant equivalent to human sperm, all of which has been digested in the bee's gut. Thus, honey is a teeming collection of very small microbiologically active nutrition factors. While white sugar clearly is a major factor generating cavities in the West, raw honey does not fuel cavity making bacteria with the same flavor. So isn't that amazing that sugar is very bad for your teeth and causes lots of multitudes of health problems, but we just love that sweet sugar. But if we switch over from sugar to honey, we also get the sweetness, we don't get the teeth decay, and we get all of the magnificent, wonderful nutritional properties and healing properties, and we'll go into that a little bit later in our study of this little series that I'm going to be doing on the raw honey. So let's see, where was I at? There was one more spot that I wanted to read. There are many different types of honey, as there are combinations of bee strands and plants with nectar. Of the 20 different thousand species of bees, most are solitary and thus do not gather extra honey for human harvesting. Yet there are over 200 different types of honey harvested in the United States alone, with clover honey accounting for about 70% of the sales. And there are many different types of honey. There are orange blossom honey, which is from California, a buckwheat honey from New York, Tupelo honey from Florida, fireweed honey from Washington, and let's see, another one from Washington, a unique honey that includes a maple blossom raspberry, wild blackberry, wild huckleberry, and snowberry. As you become more enthused about honey, you may start looking for small, local beehives and develop your own taste for many different varieties of honey. So there are lots of many different kinds of honeys out there. Totally just unbelievable. Certain farms grow certain types of honey. The most common is the clover honey. And I guess that's because there are lots of clover all over the United States. So a lot of health benefits in clover too. I guess I could link that video. I did a video on clover health benefits, and I believe it was clover tincture and probably clover tea. So you might want to check those out. So that was all I wanted to read on a little bit of the history on the honey, which was quite magnificent. And now I want to go over another reference for honey that maybe you have not thought of, and that is in the Holy Bible. There are about 61 verses about honey in the Bible. In the Old Testament, Genesis 43:11. And their father Israel said unto them, If it must be so, now do this. Take of your best fruits in the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm, a little honey, spices and myrrh, nuts and almonds. Also, if you're interested in more readings, I'll be reading a few more and then giving a bunch of Bible verses. In Exodus 3:8, verse 8, verse 17, chapter 16, verse 31, chapter 33, verse 3, and Exodus 13, verse 5. Leviticus chapter 2, Numbers chapter 13, verse 27, chapter 16, verse 13 and 14. Deuteronomy 6:3, 11:9, 26:9, 26:15, 27:3, 31:20, and 32:13. And that was Deuteronomy. Also in Deuteronomy 8:8, a land of wheat and barley, and vines of fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey. Also in Joshua 5:6, Judges 14, verses 8, 9, and 18, 1 Samuel 14, 25, 26, 27, 29, and 43. 2 Samuel 17, 29. 1 King 14, 3. 2 King 18, 32. 2 Chronicles 31, 5. As soon as the commandments come abroad, the children of Israel brought in a bun dance, the first fruits of corn, wine, oil, and honey of all the increase of the fields, and the tithe of all things brought they in abundance. This was the James King Version, so you know there's a lot of thou and theys in those. But that was 2 Chronicles 31, 5. Also in Job 20:17, Psalms 19:10, Psalms 81:16, Psalms 119:103, Proverbs 5:3, 16:24, and 24:13. Proverbs 24:13, My son, eat thou honey, because it is good, and the honeycomb which is sweet to thy taste. Proverbs 25:16, 27, and 27:7. Song of Solomon 4:11 and 5:1. Isaiah 7:15 and 22. Jeremiah 11:5, that I may perform the oath which I have sworn unto your fathers, to give them as land flowing with milk and honey. And it is this day, the Lord answered, I am. Let me start over with that one. So I'm totally confused. I scratched out something, then I rewrote it, so I'm not sure if I completely messed it up. Jeremiah 11:5, that I may perform the oath which I have sworn unto your fathers, to give them as land flowing with milk and honey. As it is this day, they answered, I, and said, so be it. O Lord, Jeremiah, this was Jeremiah 41:8 and 32:22. I think that was another reference to it, but the one that I read was Jeremiah 11:5. Also, you can find out more about honey as a reference to the history of honey in Ezekiel 3:3, 19:16, and chapter 16, verses 13, 19, chapter 20, verse 6, verse 15, chapter 27, verse 7. Those were all in the Old Testament. Now we have a few in the New Testaments. You can read in Matthew 3:4, Mark 1:6, Luke 24:42, and Revelations 10:9 and 10. Chapter 10, verse 9 through 10. So that was a bunch of reference of the history of honey that's in the Bible where it's made of mention. If you need more reference on some of the things that I mentioned, some verses, as always, send me an email and I can give you a screenshot of my notes or whatever and get the verses to you. It's extremely too much for me to write down in the description of the content. So if you're interested in some of that information or where to find it, I can give you where I have found it at and all the information that I know about it as far as from the Bible reference. So this one here is some of the fun facts in the history and some of the Bible verses about honey. No particular order. I'm going to do one on health benefits of honey. I'm going to do another one on home remedies. There's going to be another video come out on different ways to cook with honey. And I might touch on this, the information on buying honeybees and raising honeybees. Something along those lines. And the benefit of buying local honey. So that might be kind of iffy. I might not. I'm not sure. But I might go into it a little bit. And then the last one is probably going to be keeping honey. How to keep honey stored safely. And how long does honey last. And some of the history on that. And also how to decrystallize honey. And maybe a few tips on how to tell if your honey is actually real honey or not. I'm not actually an expert at that, but there are a few little ways that you can kind of tell if it's real honey or not, because the labels on our food nowadays are extremely misleading and don't really make plain sense to us plain country folks. We just kind of like just lay it out and tell us what it is instead of using all these big scientific words. So I might try to break that down just a little bit, see if I can help some of you learn a little more about some of that stuff. So that's going to be all for today. I have several books that I'm pulling my information from about honey, and I have a little cookbook that is cooking with honey. I will do one series on that. That was the other one. Yeah, I mentioned that. That was going to be a series. I'll probably do a cooking video or something on cooking something with honey or making something with honey. I look forward to doing this. I've told a few of my local friends, local people, that I was going to do a little study on honey, and I just have been trying to get my information together, and I wanted to present it and it to be good information and not just all thrown into one video. So I tried to break it down into different little categories so that maybe the ones that are interested in it, I know not everyone's interested in being healthy or living healthy, but I also know there are lots that are looking to live more lean and green and natural and healthy and pure as they can possibly eat. So I hope that it'll help someone. It's very interesting when you dive into just one topic, just honey. It's just unbelievable, and there's lots of good references out there, lots of good information. So I just thought we would break it down and share a little bit of honey information with everyone. Do a different kind of little series. And like I said, it all ties right back to homesteading. We kind of have to have bees to keep our crops going. So, alright. Just leave me a friendly comment. Email me if you have more personal questions or want more precise information that may not be left in the description. So thanks for joining me today, and farewell, Homestead family, friends, and neighbors from the Cozy Cottage Homestead.